Blog Talk Radio.
Michamo Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut. Michamo Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut. And Neye AMANSEM Da. Medinde Odwirafo, Kwesi, Ptah, Akhan. Akwamumain Amaruka Etipi Mu Odwirafo, ODWIRAMAN Mu. Greetings to all Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people, meaning Africans, Black people today. It's AMANSEM Day, Affairs of the Nation Day. My name is Odwirafo, Kwesi, Nehem, Ptah, Akhan. Odwirafo of the Akwamo Nation in North America, within ODWIRAMAN, the Purified Nation Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people in the Western Hemisphere. Yet I say we thank you once again for tuning into the broadcast. We've opened up the chat room. If you have any questions or comments and you'd like to interact in the chat room, you must log in as a user in order to interact. If you have any questions or comments on the phone line, simply hit the number 1 so that we can see that your hand is raised. For those who are new to the broadcast, we have 4 broadcasts on a weekly basis. We have Akhan for Nanasom, Ancient Authentic Akhan Ancestral Religion on Joda on Monday nights, where we deal specifically with the Akhan expression of Nanasom, Ancestral Religion, first and foremost because we are Akhan, secondly because of the misinformation being propagated regarding Akhan Ancestral Religion, culture, cosmology, ritual practice, and so forth from individuals in the Western Hemisphere as well as individuals on the continent of Afuraitkaitnut, Africa, who have been infected with white pseudo-fake religions such as Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism, and so forth, white culture in general. Thus, their presentation of Akhan ancestral religion has been infected. So we deal with ancient, authentic Akhan ancestral religion, which roots us in our ancestral origins in ancient Khanat, the Khan land, which is a title of ancient Nubia. Our people originated in that region. We migrated from that region 2,000 years ago after the fall of ancient Kemet and northern Khanat, Egypt and northern Nubia and so forth. We relocated to the western part of the continent, reestablished ourselves, reestablished the Khanat Empire, so-called Empire of Ghana. Hundreds of years later, because of Muslim invasion, some of our people migrated further south to the forest belt and savanna regions, reestablished Akhana civilization in those regions, and then hundreds of years after that, some of our people were forced into North, Central, South America, the Caribbean, during the Mbusuo Kessie, the Great Perversity, the enslavement era, and this is how we ended up in the Western Hemisphere. Hold on one second. Seems like we're having a little trouble with the phone line, so give me 1 second right quick. We might have to reboot. Hold on 1 second. So we're back on. For those who are on the phone line, we just want to check to make sure the sound is back up. If you can hear the sound, hit the number 1 so that we can see that everybody can hear. Anybody on the phone line? Okay, Mirase. All right, so there was a little bit of a issue with the sound quality coming through. So if there's any problem, just post the information in the chat room. Let us know if there's some fuzziness with the sound. Just post it in the chat room so we can fix that. So as we were saying, we have the Akhan Nanasom broadcast on Monday nights, dealing with specifically with the Akhan expression of ancestral religion. When we were forced into the Western Hemisphere, we maintained our ancestral religious traditions. Thus, Akhan ancestral religion in South America, Suriname, for example, is called Winti, from the Akhan term Winti. In Jamaica, Akhan ancestral religion is called Obia, from the Akhan term Obayi. In the United States, Akhan ancestral religion is called Hoodoo, from the Akhan term Undu, meaning medicine from roots, trees, plant life. This is root work. It also means to become heavy with the spirit through spirit possession, spirit communication. We also find that these same definitions for the same term. Undu meaning medicine from roots, trees, plant life, also meaning to become heavy with the spirit, can be found in the language of ancient Kanat and Kamet in the Medusa, the hieroglyphs. Those definitions are borne out. Also, Undu meaning the offerings we give on the shrines to the deities, and the altars for the deities themselves are called the Udu as well. Even one of the titles of ancient Kanat, Nubia, is the Udu, land, and people called the Udu people. So this is terminology we have used for thousands of years across 2 continents to identify ourselves in our religious practice. We were empowered and guided through Hoodoo to wage war against the whites and their offspring and force the end of enslavement in the Western Hemisphere, taking up metal armaments as well as using chemical and biological weapons of warfare, root work being the precedent set in the Western Hemisphere by those practicing root work, conjure, and so forth, Akhan people as well as other Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people, utilizing these ritual practices to wage war through chemical and biological warfare. That's what we deal with on Joda Monday nights. On Benada, Abinada Tuesday nights, we have Ojira, which means purification, purifying concepts, purifying cosmology, purifying the understanding of ancestral religious practice. We deal with ancestral religion in general, which we call Nanasom, Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut, or African ancestral religion, not just the Akhan expression, but on the Ojira broadcast, ancestral religion in general, no matter what form it takes, wherever we exist in the world, on the continent of Afuraitkai, as well as in the Western Hemisphere. We deal with how ancestral religion impacts every aspect of our lives. Ancestral religion, or Nanasom, as we call it, is the ritual incorporation of divine law and the ritual restoration of divine balance. That means through ritual we incorporate those things, objects, deeds, and entities we need to incorporate in order to harmonize our thoughts, intentions, and actions with divine order every moment of every day, so we can restore balance to our thoughts, intentions, and actions. Thus, the ritual incorporation of divine law and the ritual restoration of divine balance are the expansive and contractive poles of ancestral religion. We state that Ojira, purification, operationalizes Nanasom. Purification operationalizes our practice of ritually incorporating law and ritually restoring balance so that we can execute our function in creation while we're aligning every thought, intention, and action with divine order every moment of every day. That is the culture, the way of life of Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people, to execute our divinely allotted function in creation given to us by the Supreme Being, Nyamewa and Inyame, or Aminet and Amen, Great Mother and Great Father, Supreme Being. But we align every thought, intention, and action every moment of every day with divine order. When we make legitimate mistakes, then we engage the ritual process to incorporate law and restore balance so that we can get back on track with aligning every thought, intention, and action with divine order every moment of every day. And thus, this is how ancestral religion literally impacts every aspect of our lives as Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people when you're practicing from an authentic perspective. So we deal with the purification of concepts, culture, cosmology, the misinformation that's being propagated, dealing with ancestral religion and so forth. We deal with our transcarnationally inherited religious traditions born of our blood circles and preserved in our blood circles in the Western Hemisphere, inclusive of Hoodoo, which is the Akhan tradition, Juju, which is the Yoruba tradition in North America, Voodoo, which is the Ebe and Phone tradition in North America, Wanga, which is the Ovambo tradition in North America, Ngengai, which is the Fang tradition in North America, Grigri, which is the Bambara tradition in North America, and so on. So we deal with that on Benada, Abinada, Tuesday night. Egua, Marketplace Day, that is the broadcast for Awukuda, Akuada Wednesday night, where we showcase Afurakani businesses, organizations, and institutions who are serving our community in a positive capacity, those who maintain their ancestral religious values in the context of their service to the community. We also have published our Okom Economic Development Model, which you can download for free from the website. Part of that process, when we're talking about economic development rooted in our ancestral religious values, thus we have a holistic approach to economic development for our people, Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people, Part of that process is the operation we call Starve the Beast and Feed the Pride. That means we make an assessment on a weekly basis to determine what funds we would have potentially wasted with the whites and their offspring. Then we starve the beast and feed the pride. We reallocate those funds away from the white businesses and direct them to the business organization or institution of the week. We showcase one Afurakani Afuraitkaitnit business, organization, or institution per week for optimal capital infusion. Thus, when you starve the beast and feed the pride, reallocate $10 or $15 away from a white business and direct them those funds to the business of the week. That's a transfer of $10 or $15 in capital. When 1,000 of our people are engaged in the same starve the beast and feed the pride operation, that's a transfer of $10,000 to $15,000 from various white businesses to a black business of the week. That allows them, with that infusion of $10,000 to $15,000 in the course of 7 days, it allows them to immediately hire individuals full-time within the business within the course of 7 days permanently. It allows them to expand their product lines to us, their services to us, to serve us at a greater capacity so we don't have to go outside the community to access these products or services. And that's a win-win situation. If we do not engage that process of starving the beast and feeding the pride, then by default, we leave the $10,000 to $15,000 in the hands of our absolute enemies, the whites and their offspring. And by default, we are financing our own oppression. And of course, we are spending $20 billion plus per week, weekly, as a community. 95+% of that $20 billion is outside of our community. Less than 5% is within our own businesses. When we shift at least 2 or 3 billion more of that back into our communities, we can employ every Afurakani Afuraitkaitnit unemployed individual in the country at $50,000 a year. We did those calculations on previous broadcasts. So we need to starve the beast and feed the pride. We've had a number of businesses on the show. A few weeks ago, we had Renewal with Hoodoo Pharmacy, as well as Conjure Culture and Couture. You can support that business. You can listen to the broadcast, go to the website, and so forth. The following week, we had AMANSEM with Asase Heals. You can listen to that broadcast, support that business. Last week, we had Okotowa Merit Alsar, owner of Kemet Crowns. You can listen to that broadcast, support that business. This week, the business of the week, because this is a special week for 2 reasons. Number one, we're in the midst of Apo, which is our 13-day observance of ritual purging, purification that's calibrated to the spring equinox, which happened just a couple of days ago. So we're in the midst of this purification process, and that culminates, it goes this year from March 13th through the 25th. Right in the midst of that cycle was March 20th, which was the equinox, the balancing point, and so forth, which we're going to be talking about once again tonight. But that the last day of our 13-day observance is March 25th, this Awusida, this Sunday, and that is also our 3rd annual AKYISAN Ancestral Religious Reversion Conference here in Washington, D.C., from 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. It is a free event. It is open to Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people only, of course. Registration is required. Registration is free. It is a family event. We will have presenters on the Hoodoo tradition, Voodoo tradition, Juju tradition, which is Akhan, Ebe, and Yoruba, preserved in the blood circles of our people in North America for over 300 years. We will have our Egua marketplace vendors, including a food vendor and so forth, vegan food and so forth. So doors will open at 11:30. The program will begin promptly at 12. So all the information is on the AKYISAN site. And because of that, this particular week, the business of the week is our conference. We have our AKYISAN crowdfund page. You can support that crowdfund effort. Even if you're not able to come to the event, we will be giving away a free copy of our book, AKYISAN Ancestral Religious Reversion, Volume 3, to all attendees to the conference. But if you're not able to attend the conference, but you support the work we're doing, any donation that you make to our crowdfund, that allows you to receive Volume 3, the new book, which will be released on Sunday, You can receive that in return for your donation. So we have the AKYISAN Ancestral Religious Reversion Conference, 3rd annual. That is the business of the week this week. So you can go to our site and Yedase for. We have some people who have contributed to the effort. We appreciate that, Yedase. But we're still, of course, accepting those contributions. We're still in the process of, taking care of the loose ends and so forth. So if you would like to support that effort, we still have to print out Volume 3, and we'll be giving away, however many people come, if we have to give away 50 books or 60 books or whatever it is, we'll be printing out all those books in the next day or two so that we can give them out. So that is an expense. So your contribution will assist us with that expense, as well as covering the venue expense, because, of course, as all of our presentations are, this is a free event to the community. We cover the cost of the venue, renting the venue, the free books, and so forth. But the crowdfund contributions will assist us with that. Yeah, I'll say to those who have taken a few minutes to go to the crowdfund site, including today, we had an individual contribute. So yet I'll say for assisting us with that, and yet I'll say to those who will assist. And we'll put the link in the chat room right now. Even during the broadcast, you can go and make a contribution and send us your mailing address in the link when you make the contribution, so we'll know where to send your book. So it's fundraiser.com, fundrazr.com/AKYISAN_reversion. That is the crowdfund page. So that's what we do on Afukuda Wednesday nights for the Egwa Marketplace show. And tonight is Yauda Thursday, also called Yada and Abada, after the deities Yao, Ya, and Abba, which is Heru, the son of Asar and Aset, Wachet, and Nekabeth, governing this particular day and so forth. AMANSEM affairs of the nation. On this broadcast, we deal with issues that are confronting us as an Oman, as a nation, specifically as ODWIRAMAN, the Purified Nation, Afurakani people in the Western Hemisphere. And we deal with our issues from a unique perspective, an Amaniye perspective or nationist perspective. We deal with nationism, Amaniye, which is the term we utilize for nationism, the purification of nationalism. We deal with nationism, the purification of nationalism, because we have a holistic approach to nation building, restoration rooted in our ancestral religious values. Prior approaches to nationalism, Pan-Africanism, and so forth, rooted in Eurocentric values such as secularism or pseudo-religions like Christianity or Islam, or trying to blacken up Christianity, Islam, and so forth. They're trying to put forward a secular approach to nationalism that has always been ill-suited for our purposes because it's not based in reality. It's trying to blacken up a Eurocentric approach. Our approach to nation building is rooted in reality. It is a holistic approach to nation building rooted in our ancestral religious values, because our ancestral religion is based on reality. The very forces that regulate order in creation, that sustain order in creation, are the very forces that we attune to so that we can replicate the order in creation in our social order, creating a civilization and a balanced society. So an Oman, a nation, is a living, breathing entity governed by specific forces in creation. We are cells within that organ structure. When we support the organal structure of which we are a component part, the nation, the Oman, and the deities that govern that nation, then we are operating in a holistic fashion. We were forced into the Western Hemisphere. However, our ancestors upon that forced migration directed us to coalesce in a specific region of the Earth Mother's body here in the West, blend ancestral blood circles in this region, interface with the Earth Mother divinities, Asase Afu and Asase Ya, in this region of their body, interface with the unique expression of the Abosom, the Orisha, the Vodou, the deities as they manifest in the western region of the Earth Mother's body, deal with the plant life, animal life, and mineral life for food as well as medicine, and their spirit totems in this region of the Earth Mother's body. And because of that confluence of events, we have forged a locative identity. Thus, we have a unique expression of ancestral religion, culture, and an approach to nation-building restoration rooted in that locative identity, and we have a unique approach to solving our problems. We don't look outside of our community or our ancestrally inherited, transcarnationally inherited culture to solve our own problems. So tonight we want to deal with the broadcast is Renpet and Maat, Renewal and Balance via AKYISAN Ancestral Religious Reversion. We want to examine that renewal and balance function of the deities of Female Abosom, Renpet and Maat in the context of Ancestral Religious Reversion. It's directly related to the spring equinox and the renewal and balance of our ongoing nation-building work as ODWIRAMAN, the Purified Nation Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people in the Western Hemisphere. As we have our conference here around the spring equinox, which, of course, that just spring equinox was 2 days ago, and now on Sunday, Awusida, we will have our conference is always calibrated towards this time of the year, the balancing point of the year, the equilibrating point, the second equilibrating point of the year. We take advantage of that shift in energy, that balancing energy of the earth, and we incorporate that into balancing ourselves and purifying ourselves, purging ourselves of any negativity we've picked up over the past 6 months since the beginning of our new year, which was the September, autumn equinox, Atamet equinox. Now we're moving into the warm cycle. We're in an upswing. We purify ourselves, purge any negativity so we can move into the warm cycle, that expansive cycle, clean and ready to execute what we've seeded and germinated and rooted over the past 6 months. So we have that, of course, our conference coming up, and of course we have the ODWIRAMAN Purified Nation Conference based on Amani Nationism around the summer solstice in June, and that will be our 3rd annual conference there. But this weekend, we have AKYISAN. Now, in the promotional image for the broadcast, we have an image of 2 divinities, female divinities. The first one you see is Maat, and the second divinity you see, the female divinity Renpet. So, some people may not have heard of Renpet. People have heard of Maat, but we want to talk about them in the context of renewal and balance. Of course, we have talked about the male deity Ma'a, who's the counterpart of the female divinity Maat. So when you see her standing there first, we're talking about Ma'at balance, and the reason we're showing this particular image and showing Ma'at with Renpet at the spring equinox, because we're talking about this upswing. The spring equinox is akin to sunrise as well. So, as we talked about in our broadcast this week, when the sun sets in the west, you see the sun taking on very often a reddish tint. It's akin to a red sun disk. You will see the deity Atem sitting inside of the red sun disk, and then Atem within the red sun disk sits or sets in the west, and then that sun disk goes down into the earth and goes into the quote-unquote underworld, penetrates the earth and so forth. That is akin to a seed being planted in the ground. That's the evening point of the year. That is the equinox, equal nights and so forth, the autumn or Atamet equinox. That is also akin to the evening, when the sun sets in the evening, and it's the end of the light time, daytime, the beginning of the nighttime and so forth, and the sun goes into the underworld. So that's a crossing point, and that is Atem, and then moving into the earth mother. That's Asase Neberetepet. We talked about Atem and the wife of Atem, Asase Neberetepet, also called Atemet, and that's a conception point. End of the harvest cycle, beginning of the seeding cycle, and this is why when we seed, that's conception, and that is the beginning of our new year. This year was September 22nd. That was the first day of our year 13,018. We're in the midst of a 26,000-year astronomical cycle, hence the beginning of the years with 13,000. Of course, we do not track time based on a fictional cartoon character who never existed, Jesus or Moses or Muhammad or Buddha or any of these Mahavira or any of these fictional cartoon characters who never existed of any form or of any race whatsoever. So that was the beginning of our New Year cycle, the conception period. through the evening point, the balancing point. That's the first balancing point of the year, the equinox. Then 6 months later, we have the spring. We talked about Kepra and Keprit, Separing, or Sheparing, or Keparing, or Keprit, and Kepri, the male and female divinities, the explosive power of the rising sun. It's also the springtime when the shoots are springing up and so forth. That energy is crossing over the equinoctial point of the equal nights point, 12 hours of sunlight, 12 hours of darkness, moving up into the warm point and so forth. So we have Kepra and Keprit at the spring equinox, crossing, operating through the explosive power of the sun. You have Atem and Atemet, or Atem and Asase Nebetetepet, operating through the consuming power of the red sun, going down into the ground, going into the conception phase. Kepra and Keprit are the explosive power of the rising sun, as well as the equinox, spring equinox, coming out of the earth and so forth, and going up into the sky and spreading their wings as beetles and so forth to fly and all of that. So they're rising up. Those are the divinities operating through the consuming power of the sun and its union with earth, and that's the fertile earth, Asase Afua, and then the explosive power of the rising sun, and Asase Ya, and the pushing of the dung with the dung beetle and so forth, that is Kepra and Keprit. But the balancing points that they are crossing through the setting sun and the rising sun, the horizon on the west, the horizon on the east, the balancing points of earth and so forth, those two balancing points that they are crossing, thresholds that they are crossing that is keeping the earth in balance. On the western side is Ma'al, the male divinity Ma'al of law and balance, and on the eastern horizon and so forth is the female divinity Ma'at. So when the sun is crossing the balancing point of Ma'al, that's when the conception takes place, when the sun is crossing upwards the balancing point of Ma'at in the east, and during the spring, that is the spring equinox and so forth. So Ma'al and Ma'at are the balancing points that are regulating, balancing creation, and Kepra, or Atem and Atemet, passing through the setting sun, Kepra and Keprit, operating through the rising sun and so forth, as well as those two different points of the year. So that's the interfacing of those divinities through those balancing points, those polar, complementary polar opposites. Now, here, this picture is showing Ma'at and Renpet. And Renpet is the divinity. You see she has a palm frond on her hair, a palm shoot on her head as a headdress that represents renewal, birth, new, spring, and so forth. And then you have Ma'at standing in front of her, because this is the spring equinox. This is the balancing point that the Atenit, the sun, is crossing through to go into the rising, expansive nature, the expanding fire that's going to continue to increase until the summertime when it's at its fullest extent. So we have Ma'at, the balancing point, and then Renpet, manifesting that which is new, the sprouts that are sprouting up. They were germinating and rooting and so forth for the past 6 months in the underworld, but then the shoots begin to rise through the soil until they burst through the surface of earth, and then you have the new shoots. So when you look at the term Renpet, the general term Renpet in ancient Kemet, on one hand, the up Renpet is the opening of Renpet. That's the title of the New Year celebration. But Renpet itself, if you look at the term, Renpi, for example, means to become young, to be young, to grow. A young deity, Renpi, and that is a male divinity, but then you also have Renpi, which means a spring plant or flower. Renput, plural, means fruit, vegetables, young trees, as opposed to fully grown trees, but young trees. Then Renpet also means the year. It's associated with the year, dealing with renewal. Renpet, or Tep Renpet, the top of the year, talking about the festival of the New Year's Day, year by year and so forth. But then, of course, you have Renpet, or Renpet, which is the female divinity dealing with the newness, the rising of the new shoots and so forth, the spring, when everything is renewed, the greenery coming up out of the earth, the brand new shoots, the young trees, the young plants. This is what she's governing. Now, there's a specific section. Hold on one second. Let me pull this out. We want to find the specific page that we can link you to. Even though people very often, they don't spend a great deal of time, only because the whites and our offspring typically don't focus on this divinity. So then our people who are following along with the whites and our offspring typically do not focus on this divinity either. However, she's a force in creation. She is responsible for the shoots of plants sprouting up and breaking through the surface of earth. If she didn't exist, they would not be able to do that. She's that power that's allowing them and allowing them to manifest in that fashion. So you can go all the way back to the pyramid text. For example, we're going to look at the pyramid text of Pepi. And of course, she's naturally included in the ritual process because she's a force in creation, no different than any other force in creation. There's no such thing as obscure deities or quote-unquote minor deities and so forth. The forces in nature are the forces in nature. Just because the whites and their offspring don't know who they are, don't have a great understanding of what their functions are, don't make them minor deities because they simply don't understand them. So we shouldn't be using that kind of language. Now, if you look at one of the pyramid texts, Meru text of Pepi, and let me give you the number for that. Okay, in this particular text, we can send you the number, because in this one it's not listed, even though it's in the pyramid text of Pepi, however. So, the portion before that, it says, Pepi has come to you, O Master of Heaven. Pepi has come to you, Asar. This Pepi, and Pepi, of course, is the Ainsu, the king who made his transition. But this Pepi has cleansed your face. He has arrayed you in the apparel of the deity. He has purified you in Chedat, the star Sapatit, so-called Sophis or Sirius, your beloved, who makes your annual offerings to you, meaning the Renput, the annual offerings. In her name of Renpet is the guide of this Pepi when he comes to you. Then it says, this Pepi comes to you, O Master of Heaven. This Pepi comes to you, O Asar. This Pepi has cleansed your face and has arrayed you in the apparel of the deity. He has purified you in Adah. He has devoured the flesh of your enemies. He has destroyed them, Asar, and he has placed them at the head of the Hinti divinities. And then they go on with more invocations. So, first and foremost, Pepi comes to Asar. Asar is the one who dies, of course, but then he resurrects. So we talked about that process. We talked about the resurrection piece. Then we talked about the second resurrection, when he goes up into the sky to take the form of the deity in the heavens, operating through the star system, Sa, or so-called Orion. So we talked about that. So when he's sometimes Asar has black skin. Sometimes Asar has green skin. When he has the green skin, then it's dealing with renewal, the renewal of plant life and so forth at this time of the year. Resurrection also has to do with this renewal during this time of the year, so he has that green skin. So when they say, I've come to you, O Master of Heaven, Pepi has come to you, Asar, Pepi has cleansed your face. He has arrayed you in the apparel of the deity. He has purified you in Chedat. We're talking about renewal. This is the time of the year for renewal, equilibration. Asar's body is preserved, and then he's resurrected. He rises up. This is the time of the year for that. Then he cleanses his face. That's ritual purification. Equilibration, ritual purification. The shoots, green shoots rising up out of the soil, discarding the dirt that they were moving through for a number of months. discarding that dirt as they rise up pure and so forth. He cleanses his face. Then he says, he arrays Asar in the apparel of the deity. And then he has purified you, Asar, in Chadat, which is a specific region. In this text, what are they talking about when they say purified or arrayed you in the, after he purifies his face, arrayed you in the apparel of the deity? Egyptologists will note that when we grab a ritual statue during the ritual process and dress the statue and then place the statue, purify the statue and so forth of the divinity, placing food offerings there, engaging in ritual prayer, placing the ritual garments on the statue and so forth, the wrappings on the statue, they can see that happening because they see what's taking place. That's all they can deal with. That's all they can understand with regard to that. When we talk about arraying Asar in the apparel of the divinity, yes, we engage that process, purifying the statue or sculpture, arraying it in sacred wrappings of cloth or clothing and so forth. Then we invoke the deity, and Asar comes down through spirit possession and takes up a residence in the sculpture or statue that we put forward that he directed us to utilize, and then utilizes that physical piece as a physical shrine to take up residence in temporarily to communicate directly with us. No different than when you make a call on your cell phone. Once you connect, then the voice enters into the cell phone and through the speaker, and now you're communicating with someone through a specific device. They may be 3,000 miles away from you, but you're using a device to communicate with them through. And the same is true with regard to the sculptures. It's a device, like an ancient cell phone, that we communicate with the Abosom through. When we array the divinity or the statue of the divinity in this clothing and purify the divinity, this is ritual purification, oils and so forth, or incense, resonating at the frequency of the divinity, sacred clothing, including the ritual color of the divinity, that generates the electromagnetic field, which is a welcome mat or a magnet for that divinity to take up residence in that sculpture, and then we communicate directly with the deity. Sometimes spirit possession takes place as well. That's one aspect of I have arrayed you in the apparel of the deity. The other aspect of it, which they are unaware of, which anybody who practices ancestral religion knows right off when they read this, when you talk about arraying the deity in the apparel of the god, when people get possessed by an abosom, orisha, voodoo, and so forth, one of the first things that happens is the divinity, upon possessing a person and getting inside the person's body, is directs the other people who are attendants to the divinity and attendants to the priest or priestess to go and get their sacred ritual clothing and place it on the person. So the person gets possessed by the deity. They may move to a certain area of the room or another room. Then the attendants go and put the clothing on. If it's ritual clothing for Asar or Awusi and so forth, or Batala, then they'll put that white clothing on them. If it's for another divinity whose sacred color is red, like Benna or Abena, then that deity will direct them, go get my red clothing. They'll put it on the person's body, and the spirit is operating through the person's body. So now they have their sacred clothing on. They may have certain beads and so forth. They may have certain powder that they use. They may have a certain ritual implement that they use. The attendants go and grab those things and give them to the deity and put the clothing on the person whose body is being used as a vessel for the deity. So you array the person's body in the clothing, and then the deity comes back out to the community arrayed in their clothing, resonating at their frequency to communicate with the people. That's something that Egyptologists reading these texts would have no knowledge of, because they don't understand when it says, I have arrayed you, Asar, in the apparel of the divinity, the sacred divine apparel. Instantly we know what that is, because we do that every time there's spirit possession that takes place. Crackers have no idea what we're talking about. So they can't read these texts the same way we can read the text. Then it says the star Sapatit, which is so-called Sirius, set operating through that, makes your annual offerings to you, and those annual offerings are called Renput. in her name of Renpet, is the guide of this Pepi when he comes unto you. When they talk about Renpet, she's called the mistress of eternity. She's called the divine guide or leader and so forth, because those divine green shoots, her energy causes those shoots to explode upward and break through the surface of the soil and begin to unfold and so forth. Renpet has that capacity. That's what she's doing. So whenever you see some new green shoots rising up, if there was no vitality within them, it wouldn't happen. They would be withered. They wouldn't be able to rise up. They wouldn't be able to expand and so forth. But when Renpet is active, then those shoots are rising up, expanding, and so forth. And when the so-called king or so-called Pharaoh Ptah or Ainsu is resurrecting, just like Alsar is resurrecting after burial, after his body is buried in the ground and so forth, when it's time for people to go and evoke the ancestor and communicate directly with him, or if it was an ancestress, if she was a queen mother and so forth, to quote-unquote rise them up so they can come and work along with us and assist us in our growth and development. When it's time to quote-unquote resurrect them, then they become like the green Alsar. But that green Alsar, in order to rise up, he's dealing with renewal and so forth. In order to rise up, the female divinity Renpet is operating along with him. And then he rises up based on that kind of power. She's the leader leading that resurrection and so forth, that renewal, those shoots and so forth. And then there can be, eventually they're going to be crops that are fully flowered. She's the one, she's the leader. She's operating through that balancing point, which is Ma'at. And just like at the sunrise, you see the boat of Ma'at in the rising sun, but then you also see that Ma'at boat in the setting sun, and we're dealing with Ma'at. And when we talk about Ma'at and Ma'at and the balancing of the heart and the feather, and that's an interrogation piece. When you pass that, then you have to go through the interrogation piece with the god Ma'at before he ferries you across the sacred waters to get to the ancestral realm and so forth. We talk about, in the pyramid text, you'll see that Ma'at is dealing with that setting sun crossing over there in the western horizon. You see Ma'at in the day boat crossing over the eastern horizon on the uprise and so forth. So that's why you have Ma'at in the front here. Then you have Renpet right next to her. Ma'at is the balancing point of the spring equinox, the balancing point of the eastern horizon, the balancing point, the second balancing point of the year. The first balancing point is the conception point, which is the autumn equinox. The second balancing point is the birth balancing point, and that's the spring equinox. So you have Ma'at there, and the one who's operating through Ma'at for the resurgence is Renpet. Now, that's directly related to what we're doing at this particular time of the year, specifically in relationship to AKYISAN, Ancestral Religious Reversion, and ODWIRAMAN, the Purified Nation, Afurakani, Afuracani people in the Western Hemisphere. The purification piece is directly connected to AKYISAN. AKY means back, sign means return. AKYISAN means return back, reversion. Reversion to our original pristine, the ancestral religious practices that we were engaged in when we were living in Afuraitkaitnut, when we were captured, thrown on boats, forced into the Western Hemisphere, the manner in which we were practicing Akhan ancestral religion, Yoruba ancestral religion, Efe phone ancestral religion, and so forth, the manner in which we were practicing it at that particular time was fossilized in our bones and blood. That is the tradition we pass down intergenerationally and transcarnationally in the Western Hemisphere to our descendants, which of course included us right now. What happened since we left the continent 300 years ago, some of us 200 years ago, what happened since we left and the way they practice the tradition now, we didn't have anything to do with that. So when Christianity became more popular, or certain forms of Islam began to corrupt the traditions on the continent, we were already gone when that happened. So the tradition that we brought over here was that pure tradition. It has been passed down intergenerationally and transcarnationally. That is the only legitimate ancestral religious practice that we can possibly have. That tradition that's passed down through our blood circles based on the fact that we are assigned to specific Abosom Orisha Vodou pre-incarnation. We bring that into the world with us through birth. We are assigned to specific ancestral clans pre-incarnation and specific ancestresses and ancestors of our direct matriclan and patriclan blood circles pre-incarnation. So when we are born into the world, we are already assigned to specific deities, Abosom, Orisha, Vodou, and so forth. We are also assigned to specific matriclan and patriclan ancestresses and ancestors who are spiritually cultivated. So we have the deities and we have the spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors. That means we have a full tradition. If we want to know how to deal with plant life and mineral life and so forth and animal life for medicine and healing and ritual practice, those ancestresses and ancestors can possess one of our people and engage that ritual process and make medicine and pick plants and so forth, and we can learn directly from them through spirit possession and remember those things and incorporate that as part of our traditional practice. They show us how to engage the medicinal aspect of the tradition, divination, whatever it is. So we have a fully intact tradition. So our traditions are just as potent, inclusive of divination, as any expression on the continent of Afuraitkaitnut, as well as any expression in the Caribbean, South America, or anywhere else. So we're not dependent on anyone outside of our direct ancestral blood circles for our tradition. This is what AKYISAN is about. This is why we have individuals who are from those expressions of ancestral religion. We do know individuals who are involved in the Yoruba tradition, for example, who went to Nigeria to get initiated or were initiated by someone who's connected to Nigeria and so forth, and that expression of the Yoruba tradition that they've been practicing for years. We know individuals like that, priests and priestesses, but they are not allowed to speak as presenters at our AKYISAN conference. The only Yoruba tradition that is being taught at the AKYISAN conference is the Juju tradition, which is the Yoruba tradition we have maintained in our blood circles for over 300 years here in North America. That's the tradition that we are promoting. If you get engaged or involved in the Lukumi tradition or Yoruba tradition is manifest on the continent and so forth, or in the Caribbean or South America, that's simply you engaged in diplomatic relations. That means you're learning about their expression, their contemporary expression of ancestral religion as they practice it. You can learn about that, but your authentic tradition is your tradition. And until you embrace the Juju tradition, you're not really involved in ancestral religion. You're just imitating somebody else's expression. The same is true of the Akhan tradition. The Hoodoo tradition is the Akhan tradition, the authentic Akhan tradition in North America. People can go to Ghana and Ivory Coast and learn about the way Ghanaians and Ivorians, quote-unquote, practice Akhan religious practices in their contemporary expressions as they've manifested over the past couple of hundred years. But once again, that is not our expression. That is a contemporary expression as practiced now by individuals on the continent. The only legitimate, authentic Akhan ancestral religion in North America is the Hoodoo tradition, the tradition that we brought here and that we preserved for hundreds of years in our blood circles. If you're not practicing that, you're not practicing authentic Akhan ancestral religion. You're imitating your cousin's ancestral religious expression, born of their interfacing with the Asase-Afo and Asase-Ya, the Earth Mother divinities, in the region where they live. We interface with Asase-Afo and Asase-Ya and all the plant life, animal life, mineral life, and so forth, born of her in this region of her body, and we have a unique expression that is the only authentic expression of Akhan ancestral religion in the Western Hemisphere. As far as North America, the Hoodoo tradition, and Obia in Jamaica, and Winti in Suriname, and so forth, we're talking about AKYISAN ancestral religious reversion. So when we embrace ancestral religion from an AKYISAN perspective, Now we're engaged in that purificatory process, that Ojida process, that purification process. That's when we're dealing with something that's authentic. Outside of that, we're just imitating others, and we're abdicating our ancestral mandate and obligation and responsibility to engage the Sankofa process and the AKYISAN process. This is what's different about our conference, promoting our ancestral religious practice. Haitians have their own expression, Cubans have their own expression, Dominicans have their own expression, Brazilians have their own expression, the black people in those different areas and so forth. People on the continent have their own expressions. We've been conditioned to believe falsely and foolishly that we never preserved any tradition, so we have to go and travel and imitate theirs. None of them are coming to North America to imitate our expression and act as though no Cubans are like it. Until I come to North America and get with some African Americans, I can't practice the Yoruba tradition in Cuba unless I get with them. None of them are doing it. Nobody from the continent is coming over here saying, unless I get with quote-unquote African Americans, I can't practice the Yoruba tradition. I have to be sanctioned by them. Nobody's doing that. Nobody from South America and Candomblé is coming to North America saying, unless I get with the African Americans, I'm not sanctioned to practice Candomblé in South America. Nobody's doing that. And it would be foolish if they did do that. The only people who are doing that is us. We're foolishly believing that we have to go to the continent of Afuraitkaitnut, or have to go to the Caribbean, or have to go to South America in order to become sanctioned to practice ancestral religion in North America, because we must not have preserved anything, so we're just empty, ignorant vessels. That is pure stupidity. It's insane, and it's not based in any reality. The reality is we have our traditions, we've been abdicating our responsibility, and now it's time to return to reality. That's what AKYISAN is about, and it's purificatory. ODWIRAMAN, the Purified Nation, Afurakani people in the Western Hemisphere, no matter what ethnic group we are, as Afurakani people, are all part of ODWIRAMAN, the Purified Nation. And our ancestral religious approach, no matter what group we come from, is AKYISAN, simply meaning ancestral religious reversion. So there's an AKYISAN approach to the Yoruba tradition, and it's called Juju. There's an AKYISAN approach to the Akhan tradition, it's called Hoodoo. An AKYISAN approach to the Bambara tradition is called Gri-Gri. An AKYISAN approach to the Evianphone tradition, that's Voodoo and so forth. We have our approaches to ancestral religion born of our blood circles. It's based on purification, right where we stand, right where we are on this region of Asase-Afu and Asase-Ya, the Earth Mother divinities. This is our culture, our religion. So that's what we're dealing with regard to ancestral religious reversion, renewal and balance, Renpet and Maat. It's all culminating at this point of the year. We're in the midst of that. If you engage that purificatory process, we talked about 7 days of cleansing the Krawa, the soul, the deity in the head region, engaging that fasting process on the 8th day and so forth, and going to the ancestral shrines and so forth, and to Asase-Afu and Asase-Ya, giving the Earth Mother fruits and so forth, and other offerings for that balance. When you're going through that process during this particular time of the year, you will notice that shift in energy, and you'll be able to capitalize on or take advantage of that, utilize it in a proper fashion to equilibrate yourself. It simply makes sense when the earth is being equilibrated at this balancing point of Ma'at, just like the earth is equilibrated at the balancing point of Ma'al during the autumn equinox. At this point, towards the upswing of energy through the Ma'at gate, which is the eastern horizon, but also the spring equinox, and the Ma'al gate is the western horizon at the Atemet equinox and so forth. But because of this time of the year, of course, we should take advantage of that, because we're on Earth. We're feeling that shift. We experience that shift. We need to ritualize that shift and incorporate that equilibrating energy into our thoughts, intentions, and actions to equilibrate ourselves physically through ritual practice, dietary practices, fasting, and so forth, and also spiritual practices, ritual cleansing, purification, purging, and so forth, so we can move forward in the new year guided by Renpet, when we shoot up as new young shoots and spring up green and full of life and vitality. We want to be guided by the divinity the force of nature that is harmonious, that will allow us to unfold unfold as shoots, new shoots, unfold in an orderly fashion, and take advantage of that surge in solar energy that's going to continue to surge until the summer solstice around June 21st, 22nd. That's the information we wanted to touch on tonight. Our AMANSEM broadcast is a 1-hour broadcast as opposed to the 2-hour broadcast for the other 3 nights for Akhan Nanasom and Ojira and Egua Marketplace. But this is the special time of the year for us. We look forward to seeing everyone at the AKYISAN Ancestral Religious Reversion Conference this Sunday. Go to the AKYISAN page for details, for updates and so forth, as well as on our Facebook page if you have any questions. Email us at kwesiakhan@gmail.com or on Facebook as Kwesi Akhan, or just through the regular website. If you have any questions or comments, we're going to send up some more updates, including an itinerary very soon on the website by tomorrow. But the doors will open at 11:30. We will begin promptly at 12 o'clock with libation. So 11:30, you can get there as early as 11:30. You can shop with some of the vendors at that point. But at 12 o'clock, we're going to start the program. It's going to be starting with libation, and then we'll get into the different presentations and so forth. So we're going to end the broadcast here. Once again, Yedase for tuning in. If you would like to support the work we are doing, we still have our fundraising crowdfund campaign up for this AKYISAN Ancestral Religious Reversion, partly for the publication of the softcover books of AKYISAN so we can have that free book giveaway, but also for the expenses for this free event and so forth. So take a couple of minutes before you forget. Fundraiser.com, fundrazr.com/AKYISAN, AKYISAN_reversion, REVERSION. That is the crowdfunding page. We appreciate those who have made a contribution. Any contribution you make tonight or tomorrow, people are listening to the broadcast, in the archives and so forth, you have the option of receiving a free copy of the new AKYISAN Ancestral Religious Reversion Homa book that will be released this weekend in return for that donation. And again, Yedase, we thank you for tuning into the broadcast and for supporting the work. We look forward to seeing you all on Awusida Sunday and Yebeshia Bio. We will meet again. That's it.